This is honestly a bit of a sad video to make because I think that it demonstrates the failure of our president to uphold the constitutional responsibility that he has to respect the outcome of the election and to listen to the people. On December 2nd, on the president's YouTube channel, a video called "This May Be the Most Important Speech I've Ever Made" was uploaded. First things first, I never thought that I would live to see the day that the literal president of the United States would use a clickbait title. I mean, I guess that it's not blatantly clickbait, but the dots at the end and just the overall tone of the title don't sit well for me. I mean, obviously, the video isn't monetized, but it still feels a little weird that the President of the United States is using clickbait to lure people in to listen to his lies about the election. I was hoping that a month after the race was called for Biden and all other avenues had been exhausted, that Trump might have chilled out a little bit about the voter fraud accusations. But no, of course he hasn't. Now look, I couldn't find it within me to watch the entire 40-minute speech, but I got all that I needed to within the first few minutes. So in this video, I wanted to react to some of the initial claims as well as discuss the increasingly toxic landscape that Trump is handing over to Biden once January comes, because the comment section of this video is absolutely saddening and toxic. But without any further ado, let's get into the video.
Thank you. This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months. And lots of bad things happened during this ridiculous period of time.
Well, yeah, the election certainly took a lot of time this year, but what I don't understand is how that fact challenges the legitimacy of the election. Let's see what the president has to say about that.
For months leading up to the presidential election, we were warned that we should not declare a premature victory. We were told repeatedly that it would take weeks, if not months, to determine the winner, to count the absentee ballots, and to verify the results.
I'm not sure how you're proving your point here. Yes, everyone was expecting this election to take a while due to the COVID restrictions placed across the country. And that's it. We expected this to happen, which does pose a significant challenge to your argument that the Democrats have something to do with this. I'm not sure what he's trying to say here. Let's just let him finish his point and see if we can understand what he's talking about.
My opponent was told to stay away from the election. Don't campaign. We don't need you. We've got it. This election is done. In fact, they were acting like they already knew what the outcome was going to be. They had it covered, and perhaps they did, very sadly for our country.
First off, what is he going on about? Biden was told not to get involved? First off, who was telling Biden this, and how do you know what they were telling him? And somehow this proves that the Democrats, quote, had it covered? This is more than a straw man argument here. This just seems to be the president making stuff up to rile up his supporters. Also, if Biden was instructed to stay quiet during the election, that's just a good strategic move in my opinion. If Biden had been on Twitter all night as Trump had, he pretty much would have ended up shooting himself in the foot, much as Trump has for the pretty much all of this year.
Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint a winner, even while many key states were still being counted. The constitutional process must be allowed to continue. We are going to defend the honesty of the vote by ensuring that every legal ballot is counted and that no illegal ballot is counted.
So somehow the Democrats were the ones trying to crown a victor too early when you were literally suing states to stop the count. You know, I'm pretty sure that he's just using the term illegal ballots here as some sort of word for Democrats. That's the only way this sentence makes any sense.
This is not just about honoring the votes of 74 million Americans who voted for me.
And what about the 81 million Americans that voted for Biden? Do they count? No, of course not. I said earlier that I didn't actually watch the entire 40-minute video, but at this point I have. I watched the entire speech, but I'm not going to talk about the entire speech because I really don't have time to go into all of it, and a lot of it just isn't worth discussing. But I will go into the first few points he makes.
But before laying out just a small portion of the evidence we have uncovered, and we have so much evidence, I want to explain the corrupt mail-in balloting scheme that Democrats systematically put into place that allowed voting to be altered, especially in swing states, which they had to win. They just didn't know that it was going to be that tough because we were leading in every swing state by so much, far greater than they ever thought possible. While it has long been understood that the Democrat political machine engages in voter fraud from Detroit to Philadelphia to Milwaukee, Atlanta, so many other places, what changed this year was the Democrat Party's relentless push to print and mail out tens of millions of ballots sent to unknown recipients with virtually no safeguards of any kind. This allowed fraud and abuse to occur on a scale never seen before.
The idea of mail-in ballots leading to higher levels of fraud is just so untrue. I could find any number of sources saying it's untrue, but here's an article from BBC saying that there is, quote, overwhelming evidence that voting by post is safe and secure, and that the rate of voter fraud in the US is less than 9/10,000%. If that's not your thing, then the New York Times also called the president's claims baseless and false. You can keep on repeating this argument all you want, but the fact remains that the incidents you point on as evidence turn out to be simply printing errors that were quickly rectified or were extremely isolated and rare cases. Funnily enough, one of the bigger cases in recent memory was orchestrated by a Republican in North Carolina in 2018. So there you go. Please stop spewing this crap for your supporters to eat up.
We have in all swing states major infractions or outright fraud, which is far more in numbers or votes than we need to overturn the results of a state. In other words, in Wisconsin, as an example, where we were way up on election night, they ultimately had us miraculously losing by 20,000 votes. And I can show you right here that Wisconsin, we're leading by a lot. And then at 3:42 in the morning, there was this. It was a massive dump of votes. Mostly Biden, almost all Biden. And to this day, everyone's trying to figure out, where did it come from? But I went from leading by a lot to losing by a little. And that's right here. That's at 3:42 in the morning. That's Wisconsin.
So, first off, the reason you ended up losing those swing states that you were initially winning was that those states didn't count mail-in ballots until Election Day. This is something we expected. For weeks, people were talking about the potential red mirage that would indeed come about. And the thing that happened at 3:42 a.m. would indeed be a giant red flag if that actually happened. But it wasn't. That was simply a data entry error that had no effect on the actual vote count.
If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of votes.
So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of votes, but the deficit is 7 million votes. Even if you're right about the fraud, which you're not, and right about the numbers, this still isn't at a big enough scale to overturn the election. So nice job, I guess. Even you can spin a big enough lie to dig yourself out of this one. So, again, I'm not going to talk about the rest of the video because really it's just a bunch more lies and fodder for his fans to get worked up. So, let's turn our focus towards that, his fan base. The comment section of this video is filled with Trump yes men ready to believe and whatever he tells them. And since he's telling them that this was a fraudulent election, which he actually won, when Biden takes office in January, the country will be even more split and toxic than ever. Here's a comment that I found, which I think demonstrates what is coming off of this rhetoric from the president. Quote, 100%, if Biden won fairly, okay. I may not like it, but I'll agree with it. Then Biden is my president. I do not believe this is what happened, and this cannot stand, or we do not have a country. Trump won this election. There are just too many dependencies around the country. Why would anyone not allow the opposition to check ballots? Because they are hiding crimes. Otherwise, why not just show everything is legit so there is no controversy? So this is what's happening. This effort by the president is taking his supporters, which initially definitely wouldn't have been happy about the election but would have no choice other than to accept it, and giving them a reason to be angry and to deny the outcome of the election. Look, there's no way he's getting his way in this case. There is no real evidence whatsoever. And in fact, on December 11th, the Supreme Court declined to hear the Texas case. So really, the only thing the president is accomplishing at this point is making the country more angry and divided than ever. And for someone who was supposed to uphold the country's best interests and morals, this seems like a monumental failure at the president's hands. I sincerely hope that the next 4 years can bring a more positive outlook for our country because, as it stands, I don't think we deserve our status as a global superpower. We couldn't get the pandemic under control, and we can't even respect our own elections. This year seems like a year for massive reforms, and this is just another piece in that puzzle. Well, here's to a positive 2021. Thanks for watching.